Welcome to Matters With. I'm your host, ThisPhillipBrian. Today, we're here to discuss entertainment matters with you. This one's for the Trekkers. Enterprise Incidents with Scott and Steve. If you're watching this, you're probably well aware that I'm a big Trekker.
What's that new Star Trek show?
But Star Trek is your thing.
I love Star Trek.
Do you really?
Watching Star Trek!
As a Star Trek reference.
Star Trek rules.
Religion? Star Trek. Star Trek.
I review every episode of Strange New Worlds as they are released, and I have graded and reviewed each Star Trek film. Star Trek means a lot to me, and I'm quite entrenched in its lore.
Captain Kirk, Enterprise, my first officer, Mr. Spock.
However, I am also well aware that many new fans and lifelong fans have varied views of Trek regarding canon and accessibility.
Spock.
Spock. Mr. Spock.
Spock! Spock!
Spock.
Spock!
Spock.
Spock!
Until Ambassador Spock brought them back.
Did Kirk know about that giant Spock on Phylos?
Here's something for you both. Enterprise Incidents is the best Star Trek podcast out there, and it's not even close.
That's just lovely.
But not totally unexpected.
Renowned movie critic SCOTT MANTZ and film instructor Steve Morris break down and walk us through every episode in production order of the original series, including the Cage and the animated series, to explore the foundations of Trek.
Risk is our business. That's what the starship is all about. That's why we're aboard her.
Whether you started watching Star Trek in the 60s or found it last week, this podcast enriches the legacy of Trek with each episode. The original series is the cornerstone on which all 800 plus episodes of Trek and all 13 movies are built. In Enterprise Incidents, Scott and Steve guide us, the listener, through the journey of how this iconic franchise was constructed, script by script, actor by actor, episode by episode, philosophy by philosophy, not only from a trivia standpoint, but also from a historical and craft point of view.
Sometimes the science fiction aspect of things can date the film or TV show that you're watching, especially if the production values and the production design of Star Trek looks very much like it was done in the 60s. But it's the story and it's the characters that hold up.
Also, they have very good guests, creatives from both behind and in front of the camera, plus many other Trek aficionados.
I'm Captain James T. Kirk.
Their understanding of the cultural impact of Star Trek, as well as the how and the why of storytelling, is second to none.
Logical.
I give this podcast an A.
Flawlessly logical.
I'm going to leave you with another clip. This one is of Steve Morris explaining the tapestry of character threads, especially when you watch it in production order.
In the Cage, you have the problem being illusion, and the illusions are used to bring out Christopher Pike's desires, including some of his really dark desires, like the Orion slave girl. And what he must do to conquer that is use his mind, his logic, his intelligence in order to snap himself out. And of course, he also has to reject the offer of here is anything you want, any woman you want, any life you want to leave. He has to reject that for the real world. Second episode, not illusion. Now it's godlike powers that Gary Mitchell has the opportunity to have anything he wants. And what is the problem? Much like the Orion slave girls, it's the dark side of his personality. It's all the dark things that he has hidden, and that is what's going to turn him into a monster. And what does Kirk have to do? Does he overcome him with physical violence? No, that's not going to work. What he uses is logic. He uses his mind to convince Dr. Daner to fight against Gary Mitchell. Our next episode, Corbomite Maneuver. The character that has the biggest change is Bailey. Bailey is filled, now we're not talking about desire, we're talking about fear. And what must he do in order for his character to change? He must use his mind to conquer his own fear so he can evolve and be the person that goes off in the Viserious. Our next episode is Mudd's Women. Does desire and illusion take part in Mudd's Women? Yes, it does. It's a lesser episode, but what is the choice that has to be made at the end of Mudd's Women? Is that we have to have the reality, just like Christopher Pike chooses the reality. We have to have the reality, and that's better, even when the illusion is beautiful and amazing. And then, of course, we have the enemy within. Yes. And does this apply to the enemy within? Absolutely, because we've actually taken the dark side of Kirk and split him out. And we see everything just like Christopher Pike in the Orion Slave Girl, where there's essentially a rape fantasy. Now we see Dark Kirk trying to rape Yeoman Rand. And what does the good Kirk have to do? What does Spock say? He says, you're going to be able to keep this together because of your logic, because the logic is in the good side, and that will triumph over the dark side and unify the person. And now we get to Mantrap, again, a lesser episode. But does desire and illusion have something to do with Mantrap?
Absolutely, it does.
Absolutely, it does.
Yeah.
Is that desire and illusion is the weapon of the creature. And here's another thing, is that the scene that we talked about a lot was in the briefing room where Crater says, I can recognize the creature, and the creature is being Dr. McCoy. And we see that this creature has some kind of rudimentary intelligence, at least intelligence as far as like mimicry is concerned. And there's this moment where I said, like, well, why doesn't the creature just say, yo, no, it's me, and yeah, I did kill those people, but I just want salt, and if we could just make a deal, and why doesn't Crater say that? And the reason is because the creature doesn't have the intelligence to escape its own desire. And that's where we see when the creature is Nancy with McCoy, and Kirk comes in and he holds out the salt. All the creature has to do is go, I'm not interested in that. Reject its own desire, just like Christopher Pike rejects his desire in the cage. But the creature is not intelligent enough to do that. The creature is not capable of taking charge of its own emotional thing. And because of that, like Gary Mitchell, it has to be destroyed. Here's one more point. What's our next episode?
Oh boy, everything that you were going on. By the way, first of all, that is some epiphany. I got to tell you, the whole time you were going through this, Steve, I'm thinking, wait till we get to the next episode that we're going to.
We'll talk soon.